because if you're not growing the next generation strong with strong roots, then your religion is going to die.
So why do you think the Roman Catholic side has been so much more successful in proliferating itself than the Eastern Orthodox side?
Well, I mean, there's been books written on this, right? So I'll suggest a few food for thought items.
Mm-hmm.
One is that the Orthodox Church was simply the church that underwent more persecution for more of its lifespan. So the Turks, the Ottomans, the Soviets. I mean, something that we do is we just die when the enemies
The
come.
Mongols. Yeah.
I mean, so Orthodoxy has just been a persecuted church for most of its existence, and it's not therefore mysterious that there would be fewer. And there's a lot of cultural elements to this, and Greek Orthodox under Muslim rule and yada yada. But I mean, I think that's a simple explanation. The other explanation is that I don't know if raw numbers.
Tell the real
Well,
story.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know if raw numbers tell the real story in a lot of ways, because it's like something that the Catholic Church gave birth to that the Orthodox Church did not give birth to was the Reformation. And the Reformation is probably the worst thing that's ever happened to Christianity, or one of them, in the sense that it marked the end of Christendom, of Christian culture, and heralded the coming of secular nation states. And Christianity has never recovered from that, as Christian culture has never recovered from that. Obviously, Christ is triumphant. That's not what I'm talking about. So Christian culture has never recovered from this, and like those were problems in dialectic with what was going on in Catholicism. So for a few centuries before the Reformation, there were all these reformer popes who were trying to do all these reformations within Catholicism, and of various levels of success / confusion, and things that even honestly that the Catholic Church of today doesn't really sign off on either. So it was a weird time. It was a tumultuous time, and there were internal problems that happened even though the numbers were big, right? So it's like the numbers were smaller in Orthodoxy, but we didn't have a Reformation or Vatican II or anything like that. So those are some answers.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then just to say something on the persecution side, I mean, it's almost fascinating is I think too kind of a word, but I'll use it. It's almost fascinating. So you look at the Turks or the Muslim invasions. Constantinople essentially holds them off, and they're able to conquer North Africa, and they start crawling up through Spain. But for the most part, they engulf the Orthodox side of things. And I'm not going to say that they peter out, but they're kind of stretched out at that point where the West can fight back. Then the Mongols come, and from my understanding, it's actually just a stroke of stupid luck that the Mongols didn't conquer Western Europe, that they were on the path to conquering Western Europe, and then Genghis Khan died, and they all had to go back to elect a new Khan, and they just never got around to making it all the way to Western Europe. So I guess thank God for that. But and then I guess probably even the worst of them all, which was the communist revolutions, which was, I mean, at least the Mongols, if you were left alive after they conquered you, would say, yeah, you can practice whatever religion you want, right? The Soviets were like, no, we want you dead specifically. Or not just Soviets, whatever communist state it was. So the fact that all three of those things missed the West, I mean, talk about a just triple stroke of luck. That, I mean, when I think about it that way, I almost feel bad isn't the right word. I'll just use lucky. I feel super duper lucky that I live in this corner of the world instead of the other corner of the world where everybody's just like constantly fighting and killing each other all the time. Just
Survivor guilt.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There you go. So, turning that question into a little more, I don't know enough about this to say this is what I think the situation is. What do what's your opinion on that? I'd like to ask you about the situation, which is I've heard, and I can't describe numbers to anything. There's this idea within at least an aspect of the Orthodox side of things that we don't evangelize. Now, my opinion is it's kind of contradictory to the whole entire point of the religion in the first place, but could that have been a result from maybe not 2000, but 1500 years of having to learn to keep your head down?
I want to say one quick thing on the last one, which is people's like, oh, those guys. Well, maybe you've heard of the Renaissance, and
Yeah,
I read a really compelling case that suggested that the Renaissance was basically caused by the fall of Constantinople, and all the Byzantine scholars went west, and they brought all these texts like Plato to the west, and it
I've
kicked
heard this.
off
Yeah,
it kicked off the Renaissance, and it's
this
like,
Neoplatonic mystic occultist people all showed up in Florence. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and all over, and there were successive Renaissances and all this stuff because the Byzantines brought all their texts over, so that's a really big deal. But we, you know, anyway,
It was just Italian ingenuity that came out of nowhere, right?
I'm
That
a, I'm
explains it all.
Italian.
Yeah.
I'm Italian, so I would love to take credit, but I just can't because it's they took the ball and they ran with it, and that's great. But it's not that's not the same thing. Anyway, you can't just make Play-Doh out of thin air. Um, so back to your immediate question. Remind me, forgive me.
So it's an evangelizing question. Should
Oh
or
yes,
should not evangelize? And if it seems to me that we should, based on you can tell me if it should or shouldn't. And if the answer is should, and there's some people who think shouldn't, could that have been literally an effect of we've learned to keep our heads down after so much persecution for 1500 years?
yeah. I mean the persecution is the elephant in the room that you have to address, which is
Yeah.
when you've been living as a captured culture everywhere for a long time, it's like you don't have the same attitude toward like everything's great. I'm just gonna go walk down the street, talk to people. Like that's not the world that Orthodoxy kind of matured into. So what did it mature into? It matured into a world where what was most important is preserving the Orthodox identity at home, raising Orthodox children. This kind of preservation thing. We're going to keep the faith strong. We're going to keep it intact, and we're going to build this. I think it's very scriptural. Like you're going to put this lamp up on a hill, and then people come to you. Right?
Hmm.
That's a totally powerful, if you want to say biblical New Testament way of doing evangelism. Is like we're going to build this giant church. It's going to be gorgeous, and then we're going to build this beautiful community, and we can do outreach. My church does tons of outreach, Project Mexico, homeless ministries, all kinds of stuff. Uh, but the biggest thing we do is we love each other, we forgive each other, we have lots of kids, and we build a giant temple. And so people show up and they're like, something is going on here. I want to be a part of this. And I think that is not only valid as an evangelical strategy, but I've biased toward it. I think it's better than random street corner evangelism or like round up all the natives and dunk them in the water because those things don't take. I don't know. You walk up to somebody and you're like, God, and they're like, yeah, okay, here we go again. This is
One of
not
these guys.
effectual.
Yeah.
Yeah, who are these guys that want me to convert? And I was around a lot of Protestants in college. I went to a Protestant undergraduate, and there was this whole culture of like, you just got to find people who aren't Christian, be their friends until they convert, and then move on to the next group of people. And that's kind of gross. You feel manipulated by that sort of thing. Whereas what Orthodoxy offers is it's something that works. It is the gospel. It just works. And so you would expect that if it's the truth, that there would be a good culture built around it, that it would have fruit. That's what Christ says, know them by their fruit. So build a beautiful temple on a hill, fill it with people, and then other people are like, my life's depressing. I want to be there. That's great. That's what we do. We're not going around like rounding people up. Although that said, there are many Orthodox churches. I want to be a little critical here. There are many individual parishes who are still at some level, let's say, subconsciously stuck in the hunker down mindset of being persecuted
Hmm.
like a lot of Greek churches, because they were under the Muslims for so long, that they really don't have an interest in the outside culture. They want to build an internal Greek culture. And I think there's good to that, because if you're not growing the next generation strong with strong roots, then your religion's going to die. Uh, but the bad to it is when I've had so many stories like this where people are like, I wanted to become Orthodox, and they go up to the priest at this random parish, and he's like, who are you? You're not Greek.
You're not Greek, yeah.
Go away. And it's like, okay, that's totally not at all how we should be treating people. That's clearly bad and wrong. I understand historically why that happened, why that sort of tight intercultural kind of group mentality emerged from the persecutions. But that said, it's still a very good thing to put your roots down and build a big, beautiful temple.
What about a third option, which is you go to the synagogue during service and you debate everybody on the spot?
I mean, you can.
It's been a while since I read the New Testament. Isn't that what they were doing in Acts?
Yes, but
Yeah.
here's the difference is that okay, I'm going to get a little spicy now.
Ooh.
St.
Yeah.
Paul was dealing with, well, first of all, St. Paul is an expert in Judaism because he's St. Paul. And
I'm sorry.
he
Just to put an asterisk on that, I wasn't trying to pick on Judaism specifically. I was making an allegory to the St. Paul thing. So
I
apply
can
that
I
to any
can
religion. My comment, but please continue.
I can do both.
Yeah. Okay.
I like picking on everyone, because
Okay. Good.
everyone can be picked on at least a little bit. I just picked on the Greeks, so
Okay.
uh, G, uh, Paul Paul is an expert rhetorician, speaker, educated Jew raised in a Greco-Roman culture. So he goes to the Areopagus, he debates the Greek philosophers. He goes to synagogue, he yells at the rabbis. It's like he's the man for the job. But also two things. One, that's the culture they had. They had a debating, speaking, rhetoric culture where people reasoned and argued and did all this kind of stuff. That's not really the culture that we have. You could say, oh, well, we have the internet. It's like sort of, but so much of the internet is like scroll, scroll, give me the dopamine. Algorithms show me only what I want to see. And that totally like handicaps our brains and our souls probably. So that's a totally different culture, and we need very different cultural strategies here. And maybe that involves some kind of debate format, but in certain modes, it's like you don't just go to Times Square and you get up on a soapbox and start yelling about stuff. You could do that kind of thing in the ancient world. They didn't have television.
Hmm.
They had street culture and they were outside. They didn't have all these machines, right? That's not our culture now. You do that, you're going to look like a lunatic, right? So it's important to know about that. The other thing, now I'm picking on the Jews a little bit. St. Paul was arguing against a different religion than exists now, because modern day rabbinic Judaism is a post-Christian religion. It's very difficult to say otherwise. I'm not trying to be, you know, too
No temple, no
too
priesthood.
too, too
Right.
depreciating. Yeah, but it's not really possible to talk about them practicing the religion of Moses if there's no temple. That's just not, it's a non-starter. And so the religion had to be changed. And scholars think there was a council called the Council of Janus in about 100 AD. I'm not convinced about the evidence for that, but it's a hypothetical council. And something had to have happened where they got together and reorganized the religion around the not the temple model, but sort of the teaching and preaching, reading the text, rabbi kind of model. So the synagogue model. So that did happen, and they abandoned the Septuagint text and whatever. So anyway, yeah, modern day uh, rabbinic Jews are not really practicing the same kind of religion, and so it's in a lot of ways it's an anti-Christian religion. And so I don't know how much, all this was to say, I don't know how much success you're going to get going into the synagogues now, although it's an important counterexample to the time, because at the time they were open maybe to this, but also just the whole culture, Jews or Greeks or whoever, they love debating and they love this kind of format, which we don't have anymore.
Everyone, please like, comment, and subscribe to help us grow this channel. I think we cover a lot of good stuff. We're covering ideas that you're not hearing anywhere else. Economic ideas, historical ideas, systematic politics ideas you're not hearing anywhere else.